Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Nasa's Thread. Today on the channel, I'll be showing you how I made this stylish wrap dress with box pleats and the bishop sleeve. If it's something you're interested in, keep watching, give this video a thumbs up, and let's get right into this. So we'll be making use of a crepe fabric for this video. I'm using 2.5 yards of crepe. So depending on your size, you'll be needing more or less. Okay, so I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two using the biggest circumference, which is the hip. I divided that by 4 and I added 2 inches extra for my seam allowance, and then I just went ahead to mark a line there to serve as my starting line. All right, and the next thing I want to do is to mark half of my shoulder measurement plus half of an inch. So now the shoulder I'm using for this project is 15 inches divided by 2. I have 7.5 plus half inch. So I just marked 8 inches at that point. And at that point, I'll be going down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll go ahead and mark it down. Okay, then I'll go back and mark the neck width I'll be working with for this project, which is 3 inches, and just connect it together like so with my row. So there we have our shoulder slope. Okay, now from that point I'll be marking my arm length, which is the round bars divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Okay, so another way to also get this is to use your shoulder measurement divided by 2. All right, so I just went ahead to mark that down, made a horizontal line, and I just imputed my shoulder measurement on the line also, so that I can get a straight line by the time I connect the points together. All right, so you can see what I have there. Okay, so go in and put our other measurement. So the line I have there is the chest line. It's also going to serve as the bust point. So I just went ahead to mark my shoulder to waist, my shoulder to hip, and where I want this dress to end. So note that if you want your dress to be short, you can also do that. If you want it to be longer, you can also do that. So for me, for this project, I used 36 inches for the length of this gown. Now this is minus the inches I'll be using for my pleats later on. So whatever inches you're using, ensure to add half of an inch like always, so that's going to serve as your joining allowance. So I've gone ahead to rule my horizontal lines at the points I made. Okay, now on the chest line, I'll go in and impute quarter of the round bust measurement I'm using for this project. I will just mark it down, and then I'll mark the seam allowance I'll be using for this. So I'm using 1.5 inches for this. You can use 2 inches, or you can use 1.5 inches, not more than 2 inches. All right, then on the waistline, I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing, quarter of the waist circumference and then 1.5 inches. I'll repeat the same thing at the hip point, quarter of the round hip plus 1.5 inches. Then for the full length, I'll be taking the measurement I have at the hip area and then replicating it at the full length just as I did, and I'll go in with my rule to connect the points I have made together like so. So you can see what we have there. You can see the curve. So depending on the shape of your body, yours might be inside or north. So the next thing we want to do is to mark our neck depth. So this is the back. I'm using a neck depth of 1.5 inches for the back, and I just use my free hand to just make a simple C curve at that end for my neck. That's a simple C there. Then on the armhole area, I'll go ahead and take the measurement I have there, divide it into two, and then get the midpoint, mark it down, and I'll just use my free hand also to just make my connection to get my armhole curve. So you can also use your armhole curve. If you have that, it's going to work perfectly for you also. All right, so this is what we have for our back. I'll just go ahead to cut this out. So at the shoulder area of the back, I added half of an inch to that. As you can see, that will be for my joining allowance while I'm attaching the front and back together. So this is what we have for the back. I will just place this aside. So I've gone ahead to fold in another piece of fabric for my front. Now I folded excess of this, unlike what I did in front. sorry, did for the back part of this. Now from the midpoint of this, I'll be marking 7 inches inward. This will serve as my wrap allowance. You can use 6 inches, you can use 5 inches. It depends on how open you want the front to be. So I want this dress to be covered well enough at the front. So I use 7 inches for mine, and I just went ahead to just connect that down. Now I'll bring in my back piece and place it on top of it like so. Okay, so I placed it down, ensuring that it stays on the line I made. Okay, that's where your back piece should be resting on. That's where it should be. So I went ahead to place it at that point, ensuring it stays there. Then then I'll go ahead and extend the lines I have to my front piece. Right, so we have our lines down on the front also. So the next thing I want to do is to just make a mark there to mark my neck width. Okay, so I'm just replicating what I have at the back on the front also. I just made a mark there. Then I'm going to just rule a line from that point I made to the waist area. This is going to serve as the neck of the front. Okay, so before doing that, I just went ahead to align the shoulders together. Now this is so that I don't make a mistake on this. I don't want the front to be higher than the back. Okay, so I just made the mark there. I'll go in with my rule and just make a curved line. Okay, not like curve, but a slanted line from my neck width down to my waist point line. Just watch what I'm doing carefully so you're not confused. Okay, so you can see what we have here. This will serve as the neck for the front. So I'll go ahead to trace out other things I have for the back piece on the front. So I just went ahead to trace out the other side. That's the sides of this, ensuring that they are equal and on the same level. I will just trace it out, and after which I will just remove my back piece from it. So this is what we have for the front right now. Okay, now for the back, remember, the armhole curve for the back and that of the front is actually different. So for the front, I went in at the arm area by half of an inch, and I just used my free hand to make a simple curve outwards. I'll just go with my scissors to take it out. Now this is because the armhole of the front is deeper than that of what we have at the back. Okay, so if you drafted this out on a pattern, it will be easy for you if you think so. Then on the shoulder area, I will also remove that half inch I added at the back for my joining allowance. Remember, I added half of an inch. I'll remove that allowance at the front area also. So I'll just use my free hand to just make a slanted line back and take it out of it. So I just remove the half of an inch I added at the back. Okay, so the back has the half of an inch joining at the shoulder area, and then the armhole is also outwards, unlike that of the front. Okay, now for the curve for the front, from this part I'll go in and mark 6 inches for this, and then I'll just use my free hand to make a mark firstly before going in to touch up that line. Now you can use your curved rule if you want to, but I decided to use a free hand. So this is what I did. I just made this a light line initially, and I went back with my chalk to touch up the lines. Okay, so I feel doing it this way is actually easier for me. So if you can't do it this way, go ahead and use your curved rule to just curve it like so. So this is the curve we'll be having in front of our dress. Okay, this is the curve that comes in front of the dress. So I just go in with my scissors to cut that out after curving it. All right, so this is what we have for our front piece. Okay, so at the waist point, I'll just make a notch there to indicate that. I'll tell you why we're making a notch. So I just made a notch at the waist area to indicate that. Now for our sleeve, now this is a bishop sleeve. I've gone ahead to fold a piece of fabric into two, and I'm folding it again into two, making it four. So I'll be cutting the front and the back together of our sleeve. So um I have one part of this folded completely. That's the one part is closed. The part facing away from me is actually closed. Okay, then I will just take the measurement. I wanted to ensure I had enough of this. So I advise, if you're making this dress for somebody with um um a plus size, you should use 3 yards of fabric. Okay, I managed 2.5 yards of fabric. At a point it was quite frustrating, but I could work with this. So for you to work with this perfectly, you should have 3 yards of fabric. Okay, so I just made a line at the top to serve as my starting line. Now from there, I'm going to take the measurement of the length of my sleeve. So the length of the sleeve, I want it to be 18 inches. All right. Then I'll add 3 inches to that 18 inches. So the ends of our sleeve has an elastic. So you need extra inches to help for your elastic casing. So I added 3 inches to this. Okay, and then I just made a mark there. That would be our full length. Now that's what we are working with for this. Now whatever length you're using, if you want the sleeve to get to your wrist, after taking the measurement of your wrist, add 3 inches to that. Okay, so the next thing I want to mark is the sleeve cap. I'm using 4 inches for this. I'll go ahead and just rule a line at that point. Then from my center front, I'll go ahead and mark half of my round armhole measurement. So whatever armhole measurement you're using, take that's the arm circumference, divide that by 2, mark it down, and then I'm using 1.5 inches as my seam allowance. Now it's important for your seam allowance of the sleeve to be matching with that of your dress, right? So after doing that, I will just make a line to meet this point. Now just watch closely how I'm connecting this. I just made a line, a slanted line from the tip of my sleeve of my fabric in this case to meet the point where I marked. So I connected this point to my allowance area. Okay, now I'll take the measurement I have around there. Okay, that's the slanted line. I'll get the midpoint of that measurement. Now from one end of this, just watch how I'm going to curve this. I'll curve this from the top to meet that midpoint. Okay, and then curve the other one underneath it to meet the other end. Now this is a simple way I cut out my sleeves, and it also comes out perfectly. All right, that's just it. Then on the ends of this, that's the wrist area, go ahead and mark the circumference of your wrist plus 5 inches extra. So that's what I marked there. What I'm working with is 6 inches. I added 5 inches to that. That is 11. So I just marked 11 inches and I connected my lines together like so. I'll go in with my scissors to just take it out. All right, so this is what we have for the sleeve. This is our sleeve. This is what it looks like. Okay, so once to start sewing this together, we're going to place our back piece right side facing up, and then bring in the front piece, placing the right side facing the right side of it. Okay, so we're placing this right side to right side, matching the shoulder area of this, and we'll go ahead and stitch it by 1/2 inch on both sides of this. So you want to ensure that you align your shoulder areas properly, ensure that they are matching properly before you stitch it down. Okay, then for the sleeve, remember I said we're going to be passing elastic through our sleeve. We'll just go in and then fold up 1/2 inch at the end, and then fold 1 inch extra to have a space where our elastic is going to pass through. So we'll go ahead and do that for both sides. So this is what it looks like after I joined my sleeve, my shoulder area together. This is what our shoulder area is looking right now. Okay, I'll keep this aside. Then for the sleeves, I folded it ensuring I have allowance for my elastic to pass through. Now for our elastic, this is what I'll be using for my elastic. Now the reason why I have that space there is because I'm using half of an inch of elastic. So if you're using 1 inch for your elastic, your casing should be bigger. Okay, so go ahead and place this around the wrist area, and then ensure it is not so tight around there. If you want it to be tight, it totally depends on you, but I think it should be free on your wrist so that it will feel comfortable. Okay, so just go ahead and take the measurement, cut out two of that for the different sleeve. That's for your right, for your left hand, and then you cut out the other one also, that's for one side, and then use your safety pin to pass this through the casing you left earlier, right? Like I said, it is better if it's not so snugged around your wrist. It will feel uncomfortable, especially if you're making this for someone. It should not be so fitted around the wrist area. It should be free, at least 1 inch extra. Okay, so if your client's wrist is 7 inches, for example, add 1 inch to that. So your elastic should be 8 inches of length. All right, so I just went ahead to pass it through my elastic casing, which I left. That's the space I folded and I left for this. So ensure you use a safety pin to pass this through, and then pin it on both ends after you finish so that it doesn't go back in and you're struggling. So I just pin mine down on both sides like so. I'll go ahead to stitch that later on. All right, so what I want to do next is to make a notch at the middle of my sleeve. So I just made a notch on both ends. That's for the both sleeve, the right and the left side of this. Just folded it in and then made a notch at the middle. Then I'll bring in my dress once again. After which I will align the notch part I made for my sleeve to where I have my shoulder joining on the dress. Okay, so we're attaching our sleeve to the dress. So after doing that, go ahead and stitch left and right. Then repeat the same process for the other part. Align your notch part of your sleeve to where you join the shoulder area together. You pin it down, go ahead and stitch to the left and to the right. Okay, not forgetting to stitch your elastic to your dress. So this is what it looks like after I finished stitching, joining the sleeve to the shoulder. You can see how that looks, and I've also gone ahead to just stitch my elastic down. You can see how this is, you can see how full it is around there. So if you don't want it to be full, instead of using 5 inches extra like I did, you can use 4 inches. All right, if you want it to be fuller, you can use more. So the next you want to do is to align the sides together, and then go ahead and stitch it down by 1.5 inch. Remember, that was what we used for our inseam allowance. So if you use 2 inches for yours, use 2 inches to stitch down, stitch it down from the side, and repeat the same thing. So this is what it looks like after I finished. So our dress is coming in gradually. It's looking nice already. Okay, so you can see how this is, and I left 1.5 inch space at the left side where I'm going to be passing my ropes later on to tie this around the waist. So yours can be on the right or it can be on the left, depending on how you want it to be. Okay, so we want to work on our neck area. Now if you have a bias, an already made bias, you can just use that to pipe the neckline. All right, but I'll be making a bias for this. So I went ahead to take the measurement I have around that. I just took the measurement I have around that. Okay, so that I'll know the length to cut out, and then I'll be cutting my bias stripe. I'll be cutting this in a bias form, as you can see. So I just placed it diagonally and I'm rolling a line like so from one end to the other end. So just watch how I'm doing this. Okay, now this is another form of getting your bias strip if you don't have an already made bias. Now you notice that most fabrics, they don't have you hardly see bias that matches it. Okay, so the width I'm using for this is 1.5 inches. I'm going to use that to just replicate, mark it down. That's for the width of the bias I'm cutting out. I'm using 1.5 inches for this. So you can use 1 inch. Okay. At the point I wanted to reduce this to 1 inch, but I already cut it out and I decided to work with it. So it just made it thicker around the neck. So I advise you use 1 inch instead of using 1.5 inch like I did. So this is what it looks like. I'll go ahead to just cut it out. All right, so just watch how I'm doing this. So you, after taking the measurement around the neck area, now your measurement comes from where you made the notch at the waist to the other end of the notch. So from the right end of the notch at the waist to the left side of the notch at the waist, because that's where you'll be piping to, from one end to the other. You take that measurement, place it this way and cut it out. If you don't want to use an already made bias, you can use this, okay, especially if you have a fabric that you can't get a bias. All right, so I'm going to cut out 2 pieces of this in order to use for this, because I don't want to be cut short while I'm stitching this together, right? So when you finish taking the measurement you have around there, just go ahead and just cut out just the way I'm drawing. Okay, it helps a lot. Okay, all right, so we have this is the piece I have. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and straighten the edges of this. So what you want to do is to join them together. After joining them together, okay, you join them together. After that, you bring them and then use that to pipe the neckline area. That's from the notch area to the other notch area. So you can place this from the outside or you place this from the inside, whatever way you want to, right? So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. Now the reason for placing that in a diagonal form is so that when you're piping this around the neck, it's not straight, it is not dragging. It's going to give it a stretchy effect, makes it easier for you to pipe the neckline, makes it quicker, better. You enjoy doing that. All right, so the next thing I want to work on is on our pleats right now. So we'll do the same thing like we did. We're going to take the measurements we have around this. Okay, so you take the measurement from that area where you notched, take the measurement to the other end, because that is where our pleat is going to sit. So from the right side of where you made your notch to the left side of where you made your notch, go ahead and take the measurement you have around there. After which you cut out your piece for your pleat. So you can use ruffles for this if you want to, but from our thumbnail they used a box pleat for this, which is what we'll be using for this. So when you're cutting out, the width of your stripe should be times 3 of the measurement you got. Now it's better when you have excess of this than when you have less of this and it stresses your head. Okay, so I've gone ahead to cut out mine before I've cut out mine. All right, so this is what I have for my own after I finish cutting out. Now because the length of this dress is long, I didn't want the pleats to be too big, like to be long, so I just cut this out with 7 inches width. All right, so I'll take the measurements. So if yours is short, you can use 10 inches for the width and then go ahead and fold it up, so that when you fold it up you have 5. That's if you're using 10, but for me I should have 3.5. Okay, so what we're going to do is to just close up the edges of this. We're going to turn it over to the wrong side, sew it down and then flip it to the right. So this is what mine looks like after I finished, and I just stitched the top parts together so that I can keep it in place. And after doing that, this is 3.5 inches in length. Okay, that is what I want. I didn't want this to be too long. So what we're going to do next is to measure 2 inches from the beginning of this. We're measuring 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. Now if you want your box pleats to be big, you can use 3 inches. If you want it to be smaller, you can use 1.5 inches. So it totally depends on how full you want it to be, or how scanty, if you want it to be bold, if you want it to be mild. It just depends on what you want. So I just marked 2 inches, a few of them, and I'll show you how we're going to be placing this on this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to leave 1 inch from the beginning of this. Okay, so I'll mark that out. Firstly, I'm going to mark 1 inch out. All right, that is where we're going to start placing this. So we're going to place the first one on that end and then pin it down. Okay, then we're going to pick our first 2 inch point. So just watch what I'm doing carefully. You pick that, right? You pick that 2 inches point, okay, and align into the next point. That's the next mark you made. So what we're going to do is place that down like so. So I'll bring this closer for you to see, okay? So the first thing you do is to pick the first point you make, that's the first 2 inch point, and then take it to meet the next mark you made. All right, then pin that down so that it stays in place. Okay, then bring the next one, all right, to kiss the other one. So this is what you're going to do, right? So I hope you understand that. I'm going to show it with the next one. Okay, so you want to ensure you pin this down so it stays in place before you go and stitch it. All right, so I've pinned that down, ensuring that they are kissing, and I'll repeat the same thing for the next one. Take this point like so, meet it to the other 2 inch points. So if you're using 1.5 inches, whatever inches you're using, just place them to meet each other firstly. That's the first step, and then you pin it down. Then you take the next one to kiss with it like so. Okay, so we continue repeating the same thing throughout this stripe. So that's how we're going to be folding this up. Pick the point, make it meet with the other one. All right, pin it down after doing that. And then bring the other one to kiss it like so. Okay, so it is more like making a kissing print inwards. Okay, so by the time you flip it, this is what you should have on the outside, right? You can see how nice this looks already. Our box pleat is looking cute. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and repeat the same process throughout this. You mark your 2 inches, mark your 2 inches down, and then just continue pleating this to the end, after which you go ahead and stitch it down. So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. You can see how nice this looks. So you want to take your time for it to come out looking nice. See, even without ironing this, it looks very, very nice. You can see how it looks. I've not ironed this yet, but you can see how nice this looks. It looks very nice and it looks very neat. I'm actually happy with the result. Okay, so the next we want to do is to fix our belt, that space we left between the neck area and our pleat. Okay, so I went ahead to cut out this for my belt, and I just folded it into two, closed up one end and left one end open. So the open ends will be stitched together to the fabric, while the closed end will be where we're going to be seeing. That's where we'll be outside. Okay, so after folding this, the length I have here is actually 35 inches. Now you take the measurement of your round waist, that's to cut out this the rope around the waist. Take the measurement of your round waist and then add 5 inches or 6 inches or maybe 10 inches, depending if you want that to be long. So I just added 5 inches to this to make that 35. Okay, so to place this on this, we're going to just place this way, place this right side to right side, pin it down, and go ahead and stitch it by 1/2 inch. So this is the final look of the dress. You can see how nice this looks at the end of the day. Let me know of your thoughts in the comment section, and let me also know if this video was helpful. If you've learned how to make a stylish wrap dress with box pleats, and if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, and please share my videos so that other people can gain from it, and like the video if you're yet to do that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.